place of Mary in Islam is an important topic in part because it shows the connections between Islam and Christianity and some possible bridges in terms of spirituality and devotion. But there are also some distinctions between the two which are important to underline as well. So the first thing to say is that Mary has a prominent place in the Quran. Mary is actually spoken about more in the Quran than she is in the New Testament. There's an entire chapter of the 114 chapters or surahs in the Quran. Surah 19, is titled in Arabic Maryam, which is Mary, and it tells the story of the Annunciation essentially, and her devotion to God through that, and the miracles that take place when she gives birth to Jesus. Jesus is said to be able to have the gift of speech as an infant in that chapter. Surah 3 also tells the story of Mary, and it gives details not only of the Annunciation, which is found there in verse 45 of Surah 3, but also of Mary's own birth. So the figure of Anne, whom Christians know as Saint Anne, appears in the Quran. She's not referred to by name. In fact, the only woman referred to by name in the Quran is Mary. Her mother is referred to as the wife of Imran, but we have the story of how she dedicates the child that's in her womb to God. And later that child is found in a building called the Mihrab in Arabic, which is pretty clearly an allusion to the Jerusalem temple. In other words, the traditional story, again, not found in the New Testament, but in Christian tradition, of Mary being raised in the temple by Joachim and Anne is found or alluded to in the Quran. So the founding scripture of Islam has a great interest in the figure of Mary. The place of Mary in Islamic religious life is diverse, and the different currents of Islam take different approaches to the figure of Mary. Within Sufi Islam and within many traditions of popular Islam, she's seen as a figure of great purity and also someone who can be asked for, at times, intercession in certain Marian shrines in places like Turkey, India, also Lebanon and Syria, Sednaya in Syria. Muslims, especially Muslim women, will go to Marian shrines and pray there in the hope of especially of having a child. But there are also currents of Islam which are very strict in terms of their vision of how worship is to be conducted and how monotheism is to be expressed, and see any particular devotion towards Mary as a violation of that. So we should recognize that as well. Shouldn't exaggerate maybe the bonds that are there between Islam and Christianity. There are commonalities and there are differences.